Well, there's two things there. Number one, it's, we're talking about efficiency and being very efficient with time and with budget and getting things built right so that you don't have to go back and do the work again and again to correct things that maybe you didn't see in the beginning. And then the second piece is scaling of these campaigns. It's pretty much impossible to scale a campaign if it's not well thought out with your targeting and your avatar lists and everything else. So then what you run into is an inventory issue. So there's only so many people out there, over the different media channels that you're serving up your campaigns to speak to. And you really have to be smart about, planning out your content and knowing how that's all going to roll out so that you can maintain a very desirable CPA and you have the ability to, in fact, scale these campaigns.
Well, I think scale is the key word.
Absolutely.
Right? If I want to grow a business, I've got to scale. If I've got to scale, I've got to be thinking about what you just talked about, the things that are going to allow me to scale. The trial and error approach on the left is not a scalable model. Right? You can find that you'll get some maybe little success, okay? But then you quickly trash and burn because you haven't thought through the process of what it's going to take to actually scale. And again, that is kind of this lure that people can get into with Facebook, right? I can put a $5 or $10 a day ad budget and maybe see a little bit of results. Okay, but what happens when I want to make that a $1,000 a day ad budget?
So
that's not going to work, right? You're not going to be able to be the success that you're looking for.
Let me just interject the point that a lot of people, they don't understand that, you can't just take a campaign that maybe you're putting $100 a day into a campaign. If you step that up to $200 a day, it doesn't mean that it's going to perform at the same level.
It's not going to double, right? It's not going to double overnight, right?
Exactly.
It's the same cost per acquisition.
That's right. So in Facebook world, what we found is that $10 to $20 per 100,000 people that we're serving up an ad to is very efficient. That's a great place to be in terms of ad spend. Okay, so then what you have to do is you have to look for big, ponds to fish in. So you're looking for groups of 500,000 or greater is ideal. Okay, and then what you want to do is for every 100,000, basically contribute about $10 to $20 per day per 100,000. Okay, anything over that, it starts to become very inefficient. And then your CPA starts to go up. So the problem is that you can't just throw more money at it. You have to, have enough audience. And then when you find that ideal audience, then it becomes a matter of, okay, maybe you have a few, million people that you're serving up your ads to. You're spending, $1,000 a day or whatever it looks like, and you want to continue to scale that up. Well, the other strategy now is content. So you still have the same group of inventory that you're speaking to, but you can't necessarily throw more money at your existing campaigns. So what do? You duplicate those campaigns and change up your copy and your creative, and you start, speaking to different avatars within those, within those groups, and that's how you can successfully start to scale those campaigns.
So let me see if I can replay what you're saying there.
Yeah, please. Tom is a whiteboard genius. He's the king of the whiteboard. He gets very antsy if he doesn't have his whiteboard time.
So again, we're looking to scale, right? Scale is a function of two things. It's my audiences, right, which are the people I can reach on Facebook or other channels, right? So, let's say there's different types of audiences, right? Let's say I'm selling a weight loss product, right? There could be, women, there could be men, there could be, people who are on diets, whatever.
Be sure to step aside.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the one. And then on the other side, though, is, it's one thing to try and reach more audience.
Yeah.
Okay. But as your point is, if let's say I have a piece of an ad or a piece of content, I'm going to quickly start running out of gas on the number of audiences I can reach over time. I can only go so far. But if I start making this the content axis, right? If I get more and more content out there, right, and more audience, you can see here what that does is allows me, this is the sweet spot of scale, right? In fact, it's impossible to scale, frankly, without continually growing your content and continually growing your audience and then optimizing to find out which audiences then tend to respond to the certain types of content, right? and building that over and over and over and over. This is what allows us to scale. I think that's what you just said, right?
Absolutely.
That's the pictorial drawing of that, of that picture. Now, let me just take this back full circle, right? The reason that we take that more waterfall approach that we just had on the board and we go through a process is knowing how to go about doing this.
Right.
In a way that's going to be effective and lead to results. If I try and do this with trial and error, you're going to be frustrated. And you're going to spend money that is wasted, and you're going to rework over and over and over. So if we don't know who your ideal audiences are, we don't have some idea of the way we're going to structure the content and put it together, we don't have a plan on how that's going to be put together and created and rolled out, and then we start with that trial and error, what's going to happen is we're going to die out. I'm going to put this in red, right? This is the red zone, right? We're going to die out somewhere in here,
Right.
which we see all the time.
So let me drive the point home just a little bit. And let's say that we're working with a client that requires geo-targeting. So we're serving Miami, and we know that we have maybe 2 million people in Miami that really qualify for our offer. Okay. That's our audience. That's only 2 million people. That's not a lot of inventory, actually. So we have to be very strategic with that content, and then it becomes even more important. So that's when it really matters, when you're not dealing with national campaigns. Even with national campaigns or even international campaigns, it's the same is true. But the smaller the group of people, the more challenging it becomes, and the more expensive it becomes.
The content allows us to go deeper with those audiences, because we're offering up things that different people are going to respond to, right?
Yes.
If I just do one thing and I skim the surface, I'm only going to skim the surface of that audience. So maybe of that 200,000 you just talked about, I'm only touching 5,000 of them.
Yeah.
But if I have multiple pieces of content, I have an opportunity to dive deeper with that audience, which again allows me to scale even better.
Yeah.
But when it comes to multiple pieces of content, that's where the trial and error, that's what the error part can really come into play. Because you can easily have erroneous content. And content, whether it's good content or bad content, it pretty much costs the same. It's pretty much expensive. It's a resource. It's a resource suck, and you have to make sure that your content is quality content in order to attract the right audience. And so you want to try to do the best you can to remove the error part of it. And I think that's another thing that FlowMotion does very well, is that we're able to generate the kind of content because of our various backgrounds, that we know how to, again, to go back to that point about communicate to the audience, we know how they want to be communicated to. So we have video background, we have print background, we have imagery background, so we can put all that together to create the kind of content that gets the most efficient bang for the buck, because the audiences don't necessarily know they're being sold to. They find it very informative. Our content, our bent is to always have a piece of informative, useful information in our content. We've really kind of taken the whole idea of the 10 years worth of blogging on the internet, and we've really been able to take and fine-tune that to where we can take blogs and really make them not only just informative, but actually also a marketing capability, have a marketing aspect to it that people don't necessarily know they're even being marketed to. So I think that the more content you have can become more expensive, but it can also be far more efficient. So that's one of the things that I think we do very well.
Let's unpack that a little bit.